Could you expound on that? I think you mentioned briefly a resiliency score. People like to see things in green, yellow, and
Yeah,
red.
there's a
You know,
little,
they can
exactly.
color things and help them understand better what they're facing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the question was about resiliency scores, and to say a little bit more about that.
Mm-hmm.
So Pew actually is an organization that does these types of things, and if you actually just do a little quick Google on Pew's resiliency grades or framework, they haven't done a color code of red, yellow, green, but they've actually given grades. They've taken us back to school, and so A, B, C, D, E, and F. So well, I guess there's no E, but yeah, so they've given grades to different organizations, different states. So I'd invite you all, and it's a little bit harrowing actually, how many people fell below the curve in terms of adequate resiliency scores. And so I think it's not a surprise to many of us. I think people actually talk about resiliency and things of that nature, but there's been no sort of systematic effort or framework to think about it. I think over the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be critical. And again, I know there are different political discussions and viewpoints out there, but the people that live in North Carolina just know that I-40 washed out during Hurricane Helene. And so when they build it back, are we going to build it back differently? It's a simple question. It's no brainer.
Makes sense. Anything else that you want to talk about on the resiliency
No,
side?
I just want to say that, you know, as I was walking around the exhibit hall where we're coming from today, you know, it's really interesting to see. I've been coming to AMS since the early 90s. The sort of proliferation of the private sector in this hall. I mean, they've always been there, but it was instrument companies like little thermometers and spectrometers and things like that. But I mean, the proliferation of just the private sector that's present today illustrates the transition that we alluded to earlier in this need. Again, it's an all hands on deck challenge. And it's not just climate change, it's things like improving weather forecasting. How do we best integrate AI into a weather intelligence framework, which is, I know, something that Tomorrow IO is also very focused on. I mean, I've kind of been sort of talking from the perspective of your remote sensing capabilities, but I know you have a weather platform, and in a past, I've talked to many of your colleagues and sort of leaders about sort of the evolution of this company. So I remember when you were Climacell. So I've definitely sort of kind of kept my ear to the ground. I've advised this company at times. And so, you know, I don't have any sort of stake in any particular company, but it's just important to see this public-private partnership continue to grow.
Definitely.
Yep.
If you had to say all hands on deck approach, as you said, like what's the biggest opportunity in the next year, 3 years, 5 years for private public partnerships in this realm?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to sort of, you know, first of all, let me say this, and this, some people agree with me on this, some people disagree. I do believe that public weather information is the backbone. Just like if my house catches on fire, I want to know that the fire department's coming. But I think that I'm very strongly supportive of the federal weather infrastructure. But I think there are things that the private sector can do faster and better and innovate. And so I hope we continue to create mechanisms and reduce barriers to making that happen.